What is up, my hobby? Is it fallopian tubes? Man, I love you, dude. Love your introduction. Hello, my fallopian tubes. I forget what he says, but welcome, guys. Welcome to ZiggyNo, talking about the hobby heartbeat, live, hobby heartbeat. Gonna do a response video, a VR video response to the great Mangini collection. John Mangini, president, elected by a overwhelming support back in, I think it was the 2024 campaign. Anyway, he did a video on the difference between vintage and modern, and he could have put it as vintage versus modern. Let's talk. Let's go and discuss this. And I wanted to put together a response. I think I have a really good perspective on this. I think I have a unique perspective on this because I'm of a vintage age with a modern passion. One of the first things he said. Let me start by saying this. I love the hobby. I love the hobby. When I got back into the hobby in 2015, 16, it was definitely through breaks. But I got very involved in the Facebook community. Facebook community is where I kind of cut my teeth, made my name, got to know people, understood the hobby, learned stuff. Still go back to the Facebook community. Vintage, non-vintage, modern. In fact, I remember having one of those Babe Ruth cards everybody talks about that I won in a Raz. I remember flipping it too for some sealed wax and chasing Aaron Judge rookie cards. And I think I probably got something good. And I think I sold that. But anyway, it's not really an important part of this. It's that I love the hobby. I love all the different layers. And for a long period of time, guys, like everybody appreciated everybody in the hobby. There might have been some, friction, I guess, some tension. But for the most part, everybody kind of got along. The vintage guys might have made fun of the modern guys, or the modern guys might have made fun of the repack guys. But back in the day, and I'm saying pre-COVID, I think everybody, coexisted. COVID brought in money, and it brought in greed, and it brought in, I think what it did is it brought in a lot of foolish people, and scammers fed on it, and it just got ugly, I think, in the COVID times. Here's my point, though. When I look at vintage, and that's what I'm going to get to, and I think of vintage and I think of modern as anything in the last 5 years. Okay, I'll even go back 7 years, 2018, because when you pull into Mahomes, you can pull in, Mahomes is 17, actually, and you can pull in Luca, so you can call them part of the modern. I know a lot of people say, modern goes further back, but I'm talking ultra modern. It's that new stuff. It's the recent stuff. I even think we're going to go into a new era when Topps takes over. It's going to be like ultra modern because things are really going to change all under one licensed banner, potential of these big jumbo hits across products, product chases. I think that's going to be a brand new era. But that, it's my opinion. Anyway, back to my point. John started off this video, and my point, John started off his video at 4 minutes and 30 seconds by saying, vintage doesn't seem to like modern. And I think that's a very, very profound statement. I say that because I don't find a lot of modern people who don't like vintage. I'm never with the modern guys who are like, oh, I hate vintage people. Vintage people are the worst. I can't. But I do listen to a lot of vintage people who do not like modern people. Do you know what I'm saying? Now, he goes on to say, not the modern, it's the modern things like breaking and the modern changes and all that stuff, which is kind of interesting because, again, it all gets associated back with modern sports cards. We lump it all in. But breaking and repacks, they do that in vintage as well. So I did think it's interesting that John did say vintage doesn't like modern, and they don't. It's not that they don't like the modern, because many of them like collect modern, but they don't like all the new stuff in modern. They don't like the rise in the prices, the model for getting it, and those things. My response to that is that, again, I don't see that in the modern community. Modern does not look down on vintage in that way. I personally, as a modern guy, have huge respect for vintage. It's just not my thing. It's kind of like Pokemon. It's not my thing. I played with both of them. I've done both. It's just not my thing. I know enough to know it's not where I'm good. And why I say that is that I will say primarily I'm a hobbyist who likes to profit right now off of enjoying the hobby. I'm going to be brutally honest, right? I like to be able to buy cards, make my money back, make a little extra money, buy more cards, expand and build and grow. I've been doing that for a while. I love doing that. It's been fun. That comes to me with the ability of understanding the knowledge of this market space. Modern is, I've said before, it's just a bunch of waves. Don't fall in love with the rookie. Don't fall in love with the product. Get it, move it, and go. Get it, move it, go. Enjoy it. Have a good time. Chase the new quarterback. Chase the new point guard. Chase the new 15, 16-year-old prospect on baseball, Bowman first, whatever that might be. Do that. But also, cash out. Enjoy the moment, move on. That's my model for how I enjoy the hobby. I don't recommend to everybody, because in order to do that, you have to be knowledgeable of the modern world. You have to know what's going on. You have to know the products, the trends, when things are buying and selling, how to get it, how to move it, who to sell it to, how to get it graded. Like, let me be honest. Selling in the modern world is one of the most complicated things. And I've seen some examples of that where people are like, well, I went to go sell it, but I sell it for less than the amount because I couldn't get the highest amount. Of course not. It's very hard to maximize your sale in modern. But everybody seizes modern sales, like the $12 million card last night. And they want, do I buy and sell wrestling worlds? Wrestling worlds? No, do not. But I'll come back to wrestling because I'm interested in wrestling. Because I've seen a lot of interest in wrestling. And wrestling has a lot of velocity because it moves pretty quickly. Anyway, back to my modern vintage thing is that my point to this is that young people and most people in modern like modern because it's a lot like fantasy football. You got to be watching the draft. You got to be watching the waiver wire. You got to be very involved. Where I feel like my perception is vintage collectors are not like that. They're more like football fans. They're enjoying the full season. They're watching the Pittsburgh Steelers win a championship. Does that make sense? So let me just clarify this. I look at modern as fantasy football guys. They're in there weekly. They're doing daily fantasy football they can, right? They're flipping at the same show, okay? And I look at vintage as enjoying a football season. In fact, they're enjoying the football team. They're a fan of the team. So the team might be building, like they might have got a draft pick this year. I'm like, hey, man, we're going to be really good in a few years. That is the vintage mentality. And I love them both. And as sports persons, I think we both can appreciate that. But there's a conflict, right? Because here's the reality. It's an opportunity cost, I refer to it as. Right? If you're a vintage guy and you buy a Clemente and you put, and again, I don't know these cards. I put $1,000 in Clemente, and I know it's going to go up because look at all the historical trends. It's always these things always go up, right? It's going to go up. It's going to be $1,500 in like I don't know a few years. But in modern, for me, that $1,000, I'm like, I can use that $1,000 on 5 different plays in the next 4 weeks, right? Maybe, and then do that twice, do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And in fact, what I've seen a lot of modern people do is that they can make so many turns, flips, make money so much in that short period of time that the Clemente card is their reward, right? They'll then buy the $1,000 card. That's their reward to themselves. They'll put that vintage card away for themselves. That's their long-term investment. Those see modern people just continue to grow that machine. They don't want to do that, right? So I think that's a fundamental, hopefully it's a fundamental difference. I'm getting some questions in my live. Let me just take a note here. And I want to talk next about the differences in these communities that are formed because of those different styles. Okay. Wrestling cards. I've started getting into wrestling cards. Yeah. Don't flip too hard of a time. Just collecting. I was going to see yet another sports card live last night without ZiggyNo getting this much deserved invite. Yeah, I'm not. I did jump in last night to Sports Card Live off and on. I just had a lot of things going on. I do love the show. It got a little dry for me. Like it was the same topic going on for a long time. I like mix of both modern. Most people do. I appreciate the reason I don't have a vintage collection right now. I'll be honest, is I see that as not something I need the money right now. The cash flow is more important to me now. I have it in the modern than it is to have in vintage. But I'm fine with modern. I mean, I don't have anything against the vintage. I've even looked at vintage for a couple other business moves. Will Bradley comeback card investor make another comeback? I doubt it. I'm actually impressed. Let me just say this too. I applaud that guy for walking away the way he did. I mean that. Like, think about this. Of all the channels out there, Brad had a very, very good channel. He was very, very well liked. I thought he put together really good content. He had the most subscribers when he left. I think he was higher than both Sports Card Dad and Neo, and he just kind of walked away. And he didn't sell it. He hasn't given it away. I think the channel's still there, so I applaud that. Not a fan of the ultra modern. That's fine. You have to be going back to my analogy. So again, let me go back to that. So again, modern is fantasy football. Vintage is as a fan. You're a team fan. It creates different communities, right? Because when you go to a Steelers game with your Steelers jersey on and you see your buddy that you've been seeing for every year at the game for tailgating for years, you guys have a different camaraderie. You're going to share hot dogs. You're going to give him your hamburger. He's going to give you a hot dog. You see what I'm saying? Like it's different. I'm going to give you my Clemente and you're going to give me Ted Williams Jr., right? So you see that's the community that vintage creates. It's a seasonal, it's a longer term. We're in this together. We want to win a Super Bowl. We want to see our players hit the Hall of Fame. We want to see that, you know what I'm saying? We're in the modern, right? I can go to a football game anywhere in any city in the USA as a modern fantasy football fan and wear the jersey of that team and be cheering for my players, even though, just because I want them in my fantasy football game, right? You see what I'm saying? I can go to the Cincinnati Bengals and be sitting there cheering for Burrow and high-fiving, Bengal fans that are vintage guys, high-fiving vintage fans because I want Burrow to do really well so I can flip him, right? right? You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the love. You got to look at the hobby that way. Vintage and modern, we're like football. You have your fantasy. Anyway, hopefully I've made that point. Let me move on to my next point. John makes a comment about older people, and I'm one of those guys, unfortunately, who it's harder for us to idolize younger people. And when you're younger, you idolize these players. That's why you collect them. And I did find that interesting comment because I never thought of that. I really did not. I don't know why. It's absolutely true. People do this idolize. Like I think here's what it is. I was not no shocker. I was not a college athlete. I did play high school football, but I wasn't a college athlete, so I didn't have that same investment where you watch people that you worked with and later on become athletes. Like I have a friend of mine who played with several players who won Super Bowls, right? He was in Auburn as a football player. And I don't see idolizing people because of that. He has idols maybe in football world because he can relate to them. He's more relatable to them. So I think if you were an athlete or you grew up in a certain area, you can definitely idolize certain players. And that does make sense. Now, why I like young players when I collect them has nothing to do with idolizing them. In fact, I just idolize the amount of money they're making, if anything. But I just think of it as it's fun. And I look at all the other players before them and around them and go, could he be the next Mahomes? Could he be the next Montana? Could he be? And that's all you need is a could he be, right? And that's what I love. It's the could he be's that make modern so much fun. They also have the experience. And this is something I think that I think vintage people should look at if you want to get modern. Having the experience, the knowledge of going, yeah, but I do know that, not everybody's going to be the next Mahomes. And even the Mahomes cards are going to dip. You have the experience where you can chase the he could be, and then you can unload or sell or move on. And again, buy yourself a Clemente card. So I love both the modern and the vintage side. And again, the community is there. And the idolizing comment that John made was very interesting. And it does make me think to myself, is that what, I don't know if that fuels, I don't think that fuels modern. I think idolizing is not what fuels us. I think it's really the money. I really do. I've said that before. Like I think kids today are not in this hobby because they're looking to collect. It's not that they're not against collecting. They will. There's people who have different quirks and like to collect, and I'll get to collecting in a moment. But I do think it's the money that's driving them. And every product, every year is an opportunity for there to be an amount of money in that. When you look at vintage, that's not going to check. Every year it's the same year. Next year, the 1952 Topps cards, it's not like there's going to be some new players and come out of that and be hot and going to be demanded and everybody's going to be, after. It's the same Hall of Famers that people want, or the few short print that they can't get in a PSA 10 or whatever. Okay, set collecting and base sets in PSA registry. So John talks about this, and that's more vintage to set collect. It's not modern. I disagree with that. I do know a lot of modern people who still collect sets. I've watched channels. One guy who opens modern product, Bowman stuff, and he tries to build sets out of it. I still do a lot of set collecting myself. The reason I do it's funny. I feel like part of it is just like I get so much of a product in. I'm into one product, like the Chrome V-Friends. I was in so many of those breaks that so many cards come. I was like, well, let's just try to put a set together. Let's put a second set together. And then you do it and you kind of just enjoy the completion of putting the sets together. I did that with football products, basketball products. I like to do it with 100-card checklist products. It's easier than trying to chase a 600-card checklist product. And then often I'll say when I've completed the sets, I normally will sell them or they get broken. So I don't know. I don't think set collecting is dead. I also think if you think about this, set collecting will never die because someone will always be putting together a set. And the PSA registry, let me just say this again. The PSA set registry is the most powerful, underrated tool in the hobby. Like no one talks about it. I still don't see good content on it. I still don't understand why people are so invested in it. Like I think to myself, it would be great, but they don't have to do this because it's working really well. But think about if PSA gamified the PSA registry. They came out and said, okay, this year we're going to put $1 million prize in the PSA registry. Think about how much freaking activity they would get. I don't even know how you would like award the prize, but the PSA registry is amazing. And it definitely fuels both the modern and the, what's it called? The vintage collector. Look at those guys collecting V-Friends. Those people love putting those sets together. So I don't know. I think we both share common ground in set collecting is my point. John talks about in about 7 minutes about fake patches, autos, fake cards, and altered. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, sorry. Fake patches and autos versus fake cards and altered acceptance. So here's my point. His comment is, I don't understand how modern gets all these patches that are, not even worn by the player. Look, here's my only thing. Modern made patches excited in the first place. No one even cared about a patch until modern, so let's put in a card. I think that's amazing. Let's give modern credit for doing that. Okay. Is it valuable or not? That is totally up to you. The whole game worn thing, I've always been suspect on that. And I'll also say as we've made those jerseys more valuable because they're in these little cards, of course you can't get them anymore. Of course it's hard to get game use stuff. So I'm a fan of game worn stuff. I love what the debut patches have done. I think when you can really show the complete, piece of a patch, or can make it very, very scarce, whatever it might be, that is a game changer, right? And Modern has done a great job, in my opinion, of that. So let's stop complaining about, well, it's not even worn by the athlete. Yeah, but it's a piece of fabric that they sewed into a card. Isn't that kind of cool? That there's a card with a piece of fabric in that, man. That's kind of cool. Like, go back to the 80s and do that. Go back to the 80s and put water in a can. I still can't believe someone put water in a can and they're rich. At the same time, my argument, I look at the vintage guys and I say to myself, you guys, right, buy these raw cards and or graded cards and these old slabs. Where my biggest fear of vintage, the thing I've been hearing for 20 plus years, is that vintage is the easiest place to make fake cards or to alter them, to change their actual their state, right? I don't think that's changed. I think it's still the most area that people make counterfeit stuff, that you'll see people try to insert autographs on. The trimming is as outrageous. In fact, I was just watching somebody talk about, talking about the fact that Honus Wagner is still a trimmed card sitting in a PSA 8 slab. Like, why has that not been decertified? We know it's trimmed. There's a court case. The guy went to jail because he was using the trim card to commit fraud, right? So anyway, I said this too. So vintage, you are much more accepting of weirder things that I would say are questionably not authentic, if that makes sense, or they're only authentic, if that makes sense. I'm going to stop checking my questions here, and then I'm going to come back to closing statements on vintage and Ziggy, are hockey breaks in your purview? They are not at this point, although our team is allocated with Upper Deck, and the Queens of Cards will be breaking hockey probably in the fall. So check back with me, and I'll see what the Queens are doing. The Queens of Cards on Fanatics Live probably will have Upper Deck in the near future. It's just not on my immediate purview. I have not seen any orders. I've not seen any shipments. What is the point of a patch without an auto? I used to think the same thing. I thought that was stupid. But again, there's some really cool patches. And the auto thing too, like, what I used to think, like, what's this purpose of a card without an auto? I thought cards had no value unless you had an auto on them. So everybody has their own thing. I would say, I think it's more unique though to have a patch. My biggest beef about the whole relic world is, why waste time creating a card with a patch in it that's just the same color piece of napkin? That just seems really foolish to me. Now, I know the argument there is, well, if it's really the white piece of a game-used jersey from the 1974 playoff game, yeah, that is kind of cool. And I guess a piece of that napkin's neat, and maybe it has a little piece of dirt on it or something like that, but I don't know. I'll also say this too real quickly. I'm a big fan of the belief that technology is going to kick everybody's butt in the future. And I think when you look 10 years, 20 years in the future, they'll be using a transporter to just, what's it called? Replicate. They'll just replicate a patch card for you, right? That's why I've been suspect of that stuff for a long time. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Ooh, John Mangini was here. I like that. I appreciate you, sir. A big fan of your stuff. I was comparing patches early 2000s, not the 80s. Okay. In the early 2000s, the patches were guaranteed. And the reason was because they could. So here's my point: that in the early 2000s, no one cared about patch or jersey. Or I won't say no one. Less people cared about them. So smart manufacturers, innovative ones, said, hey, give me a piece of that, and I'll put in a jersey. And I remember that the MLB had those little logos, and that was later on. I think it was like 2020, 2010s, where it'd show you, like, you go look at the game that the piece of relic came from. I think that's awesome. I do. But I also think to myself, okay, like, it's just a piece. Like, I definitely like the debut patch better because it's actually the full patch. And then you go back and go, look, here's the game. Look, there's the game. See the patch right there? It's on his sleeve. Yeah, I have that patch right now. But to go back to a game and go, see the shirt he's wearing? Yeah, I have the underarm pit. I have a piece of his underarm pit. I don't know. It's just weird to me. And my point to that is that now, because Panini, let's be honest, Panini made game-worn products so popular. They made them so damn popular, guys, that the market said no more. Okay. And let's be honest, we're not talking about right now, the athletes. See, the athletes weren't aware, in my opinion, 10, 15 years ago about the value. That Giannis video, remember Giannis stealing his own cards and having pictures? I think Giannis was probably sitting there one day going, can you believe these people are spending this much money? And some other guy talked about it and go, yeah, that's kind of crazy. And that circles up to the union, the players union, like, I can't believe how much money is in this memorabilia space. And then Fanatics comes over and Mr. Rubin says, look, I can help you capture more of that market space for yourself. We're going to bring that transaction of those game-worn jerseys closer to you. But in order to get there, here's the path. And I think that's what he's done. I think that's what he's done. He's done a very, very good job of doing it. And I don't I don't know if that's good or bad. Oh, let me check out this other one. 13 million for two. I know. I don't care about if there are two. Okay, so I'm reading Mike Petty's. I can't highlight a freaking thing. Can I highlight it? Pin to message? Can I do that? Can you guys see that? For tuna. Well, my shock to there is it's Kobe's on there, man. I mean, like, I'm a fan of Kobe. Jordan's amazing, but Kobe made that a $13 million card. 95 relics are fake. I can't argue with you on that. I don't know they're not. How do I change this one? How do I I think I gotta stop this one. Okay, I'm not very good at this pinning. You're not gonna see me do it again. It took too long. Michael Hand patches are consistently being swapped out. Well, I say here's another cool thing about that. Cool, and I don't mean that cool and good thing, but the fact that people actually have a business swapping patches out. Like, don't you think the market would address that? Which also I'll go back to AI can resolve that. But let me tie this back to my whole vintage and modern thing. I personally have not, like I said, I don't know many modern people who speak negatively of vintage. They might just simply say it's not their thing, that's what they buy into, or hey, I have my friends who have vintage, whatever. Or they look at a way how they can make money off vintage through knowledge or whatever. But I do see a lot of vintage people who do not like the modern world. And I think what it is they don't like the modern hobby, which has really become gambling to many. Which goes back to John's comment about kids and how we talk about our kids in the future. I do agree that vintage, I seem to have a more nostalgic feeling that kids are the future and they want kids to embrace the hobby. Where I don't know if modern feels that way, because I'll say as a modern collector and as a father, I don't necessarily think that I want all my kids to get into the hobby. I do say this, if they're going to get in the hobby, I want them at least be aware of it and what's going on. And they're going to be the smarter child in those conversations. Because again, like the kid space in this hobby is interesting. It's just an interesting space. I can't even explain it. Like, I pull up my Labubu right now. That's all I would say. Let me read some more comments here. A lot of Panini patch cards simply state the patches was game worn. Doesn't say that. Exactly. And game worn, as we found out, I think a few years ago, there was a Trae Young jersey where it was practice game worn. Right? It can be practice game worn. It could be charity game worn. It could be one-on-one practice game worn. Yeah. If we know that some of the relics and patches are fake and not as described from the get-go, why would you trust them anyway? Simply don't let them make modern scheme. I don't disagree with you. I also think it's an interesting space where, like, why have there not been any? I think there were lawsuits on some of this stuff, but that's why they have numbered cards. I think there have been some lawsuits and other things. But right now, I think Topps has done an interesting, job. Like, I can tell you, man, a lot of people cannot wait for the NBA and NFL patches to come out. Right when those are released in product, it's going to be a major chase. Heck, Topps update this year. It's going to be interesting how update Chrome is received. The first year it kind of went under the radar. Second year it kind of went under the radar. This year it's not going under the radar. I was hoping Mr. Petty to call Sports Card Radio the other night. Yeah, I was hoping. I'll say real quickly on that, and I don't want to continue talking about other topics. I feel like Sports Card Radio needs more calling people. I wish I had more interviews. I even miss Christine. Like, that was fun having Christine on. We were assuming that when the new product comes out, those will be game worn patches. Well, it's all magic. I assume nothing. I know this. I will get it. I will buy it, grade it, sell it. Buy it, grade it, sell it. Buy it, grade it, sell it. Let people sort it out in the future. I really appreciate the people checking in, man. Have a great Sunday. Have a great day. I got a video I'm working on about scammers in the hobby, right? And why are they still here? It was a T-Lance. That was a scam. Peace out, guys.